Hey guys, I'm working on a 2005 Chevy Silverado 1500. Going to show you how to replace the steering gearbox along with the Pitman arm. So taking a look underneath the vehicle here, you can see all this wetness here. That's actually power steering fluid that's been leaking for a while here. So taking a look underneath the hood here, you can see the gearbox here. I did replace this line not too long ago, but a little bit after I replaced this line, it started to leak. You can see right there at the bottom how the power steering fluid is just kind of puddling up there. So it's leaking right where the Pitman arm goes onto the steering gearbox. So we're just going to go ahead and replace the gearbox. So before I get my hands dirty and everything, what I'm going to do is I want to lock this steering wheel into place because we are going to disconnect the intermediate shaft, and you don't want this wheel to turn, possibly setting off your airbag or messing up your clock spring. So the way I'm going to do that is just take the seatbelt here, go through the steering wheel, and then we'll go ahead and lock that in, but you may have to roll up your seat here all the way so the steering or the seat belt will reach. A little more. And then just kind of pull tight on that. So now we know that steering wheel isn't gonna go around at all. And then I'm also just gonna disconnect the negative battery cable here just to be safe. So go ahead and undo that. Just kind of tuck that down here out of the way, just so it doesn't touch. Next, I'm gonna grab a 15mm. We'll remove this skid plate. So you got 4 bolts holding that in. So go ahead and remove that. And as you can see, that gives us better access. And if you take a look here, you can see just where that's leaking. So you can see it's starting to drip right in here. And that's what's making this huge mess. And as you can see, this truck does have a lift kit on it, so yours most likely won't have this cross member piece here or this differential guard. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the Pitman arm from the steering linkage here. So locate your nut for your Pitman arm going to the steering linkage, and that's going to be a 21mm. You may or may not have a cotter pin that you may have to remove as well if you got a castle nut. But go ahead and loosen that up. And then we'll just go ahead and undo this. Go ahead and take that nut off. Next, I'm going to go ahead and use a pickle fork. I'm going to separate the Pitman arm from the steering linkage there. I'm going to use 11/16 pickle fork. It doesn't really matter if we damage that grease boot or anything since we are replacing the Pitman arm anyways. So before I go ahead and separate the Pitman arm, I think I'm going to go ahead and just jack this up. We'll get the wheels off the ground because we're going to have to do that eventually once we bleed the steering system. And that'll give us a little more room as well to get our pickle fork in through the side there. So let's jack this up. And then I'll place a jack stand underneath this cross member here. We'll slowly lower the jack here. And then I'll go ahead and repeat on the other side. So now that our tires are off the ground, it's kind of hard to get a pickle fork in there to get that separated. So I think what I'm going to do is unstrap the seatbelt. That way I can move the tires over, and that'll bring the Pitman arm this way more. And I'm going to use a different tool to separate that. So I'll go ahead and just undo this for now. And I'll just move this tire by hand. So I'll turn it to the left here. And you can see that brings the Pitman arm over this way quite a bit more. So let's just try the pickle fork method here. So I'm going to get up under there and see if we can separate it this way. There we go. So you see now that's kind of separated from here. You can see that moving down. Now that we got that separated, I'm going to go ahead and straighten out the wheels again here, and then I'll go ahead and lock the seatbelt so that steering wheel will not move. Once you get that seatbelt locked into place, go ahead and grab a drip pan because we're gonna undo the lines now, and most likely that power steering fluid is gonna leak down here. So then grab a pair of pliers. We're gonna undo this squeeze clamp here for your return line on the gearbox. Go ahead and undo that clamp. Try to lift that up if you can. And it looks like the hose is just gonna come with it, so pull that off. Next, go ahead and grab an 18mm wrench, preferably a flare nut if you can. If not, just a normal wrench works as well. And we're gonna undo this line here. So undo that. You can see that's already pretty loose here. Just unscrew that a little more. And if it's any easier, you can do this from underneath down there as well, if that's any easier for you. And I replaced this line probably about 6 months or more ago, maybe a year. And if you guys are interested in that, you can check out that video. Okay, so once you get that all done, you can just kind of bring this line up like that. That way we know it's out of there. So next we need to do the intermediate shaft from the gearbox itself. So if you notice right here, you're gonna have 11mm bolt we need to go ahead and remove. So you wanna take a long extension here to get down on there. Go ahead and break that free. Pull that out of there. And then you can take a long pry bar here, and you're just gonna kind of push that off of the gearbox here. If you can get your pry bar in there. So you can see how that kind of just pops off. Of course, my light fell here. Try to get you guys a good angle here. You can see that just pops off of there. Looks like I need to go a little more here. There we go. So see that pops off of there like that. So now we can go ahead and remove our gearbox bolts here. So you're gonna have 3 21mm you need to remove. I'm probably remove these two first, and then I'll save this one for last because you want to hold on to that gearbox as you're taking this one out so it doesn't fall. And this one here is kind of hard to get to because of this fender well. So like I said, as you're doing this last one here, just make sure you're holding on to the gearbox. That will want to kind of fall on you. Now we should be able to get the steering gear out of here. You may have to lift up a little bit to get that Pitman arm out of the steering linkage there, because that stud's still probably in there. So lift up, tilt it downward, bring it out of here. So now let's take a look at our old steering gearbox and then our new one. So the new one here is actually a remanufactured unit. I got this from Triple B Industries. You can see on the box here it says Vision OE, but it is a trademark of Triple B Industries. Part number 503-0158. I'll put a link in the description for this. So since this is a remanufactured unit, I will have to send this one back in for a core. It does come with a couple O-rings as well. And it looks like I will need to transfer over the return line here to the new unit. And then the Pitman arm that I went with is going to be the Moog K6536HD. I got this off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for it. But this is the heavy duty unit. This is only a few bucks more for the heavy duty unit, so I think it's worth it to grab that. And then when you guys are ordering the steering gearboxes here, you want to make sure, because they made a couple different kinds. So if you take a look here, you see these 3 bolts. So you want to look for that if you have the 3 bolts. Or they made ones with 4, so there'll be 2 over here and then 2 over here. So you want to make sure you get the correct steering gearbox. You can see that matches up with the old one here. And then you also want to look at for your Pitman arm. So if you notice on this new unit, hopefully you guys can see that, but you got 4 notches here. So that's going to be a 32 spline. Now if you have a 33 spline, you're only going to have 3 notches. But as you can see on this one, it does have 4. And the way you can tell on the old one, so if you're trying to figure that out, you can take off this nut here while it's still in the truck, and then you can use a flashlight and you can shine up in here and you'll be able to see how many notches are on your Pitman arm, so you know which Pitman arm to buy, and then also the steering gearbox. So go ahead and grab an 18 millimeter. Let's go ahead and get this off here. Break that free. Pull that out of there, and you can see there is an O-ring on here, and that's one of the ones they give you for this, and then also for the high pressure line as well. So let me grab a pick. I'll get this O-ring off, and then I'm going to actually clean this up a little bit as well. So as you can see, I got that all cleaned up. I just took my wire wheel and cleaned up the threads on there. That way that thread's in there easily. And then this is the old O-ring, which I just took a pick and pried that off of there. So now let's put one of these new O-rings on here. So I'll just go ahead and rip this package. So there's our new O-ring. And then I'll just take some of this power steering fluid here, just kind of lube that up a little bit. We'll stick this over like that, and then you can pull out your plug here and just save this, because you can transfer that over to your old unit there for when you send that in for the core. Go ahead and thread this in. Grab your 18 millimeter. Let's go ahead and tighten that up. Get that nice and snug. Now let's get this old Pitman arm off. So this nut here is going to be a 33 millimeter. If you don't have a 33 millimeter, you can always use a crescent wrench or something as well. Go ahead and zap this off. Because we will reuse this washer and nut. Next, you want to use a pick or something. There's this dust seal here. Just kind of move this up towards the gearbox here. And this is where it was leaking. You can see all that fluid coming out of there. And you can hear it as well. And then you want to take a Pitman arm puller here, and you're just going to stick that right there like that, and then go ahead and tighten this down, and it should pull it off of the gearbox here. And you can see this wants to spin on me for some reason. There we go. As you can see, that's actually bending my Pitman arm puller here. So let me loosen this up. Okay, so I just went ahead and kind of bent that back with my vise. We'll see if this works. So if you're having trouble getting that off, what you can do is just kind of pound on your Pitman arm as well, and then try to tighten that up. Looks like this just does not want to release from there. All right, guys, so as you can see, I got the Pitman arm off the steering gear. What I ended up using was my torch here, and I just heated that up for a good 3 to 5 minutes there. You want to do it on the front side here, not on the back side, because you'll end up burning that rubber seal there. So just heat that up and then use your Pitman arm puller, and that's still hot, but you'll just kind of hit on your Pitman arm as you're tightening that down, and then it'll pull off with the heat. And then I'll just show you what I was talking about earlier. Just grab this rag here since that's still hot. So if you take that nut off, you'll notice when this is on there, you can see if you got the 4 notches or the 3 notches on your Pitman arm, so you know which one to buy. So what you want to do next is go ahead and remove this dust seal here so you can get your pick, just kind of get behind it, press it out here, because we'll transfer this over to the new unit here. Just kind of pry out on that, and I'll go ahead and clean up with my rag here before we put it on the other one. Once you get that cleaned up, go ahead and transfer this over. Just slide that in like that. So now what we need to do is we want to make sure this is centered. So if you notice on the old one, you can see you got a notch right here. The notch on the new one's more upward. And if you look here where your intermediate shaft connects, you can see you got this divot right here on top, whereas the other one, the divot's right here. So this came off just like this. So you can see the position of the Pitman arm there. So if I take our new Pitman arm and I just kind of slide this on, you can see this one is up more. So what you can do is take a 15mm wrench here, and you can just get on this and we'll turn this either way. So you can see that brings it down or that brings it up. So what we want to do is bring this downward. So if you just rotate this till you get that notch on the side, even with this one right here, so about right there like that, you can see now our Pitman arm is on the same way as the old one that we pulled off. So you can see those both align correctly now. So then go ahead and grab your nut and your washer here. Go ahead and get that on here, and then we'll go ahead and tighten this up. Take your 33mm and we'll go ahead and start cranking on this. And then if you want to torque this nut, you can. It's going to be 184 foot-pounds. It's just kind of hard to get your torque wrench here and hold this at the same time. So if you just crank on your impact, get that tight enough, you'll be all right. And then you can go ahead and put your grease zert in now. It's probably going to be easier to do this now instead of when it's up in the truck there. So just screw that in, and then grab an 8mm wrench. We'll get this snug. You got to kind of get it started just right in here. Then you can grab this foam washer they give you. That's going to go right here. So now we can go ahead and get this set up in here and get our bolts started at least. So all 3 of these bolts are going to be the same size, so it doesn't really matter where they go. Go ahead and bring this up here. Try to get your holes lined up here. And then, like I said, that Pitman arm into the steering linkage. drop that down in there. That'll kind of hold it for you. And then go ahead and grab all 3 of your bolts here to get these started. You may have to lift up on the gearbox here or move it to the side to get these bolts to line up. You just want to make sure you don't cross thread them, so just start them by hand. And now we can go ahead and tighten all 3 of these. I prefer to just do it by hand. That way you know you're not going to cross thread them. So we'll go ahead and start tightening these. And I like to just alternate them just so it pulls that gearbox to the frame evenly. So let's go ahead and get these snug and then we'll torque them. Okay, so all those are snug. Then grab your torque wrench. We're going to torque all 3 of those to 110 foot-pounds. Next, grab your castle nut here. We'll go ahead and put that on the Pitman arm for your steering linkage here. Get that screwed on. Grab your 21 millimeter. Go ahead and get this snug and then we'll torque it as well. Once you get that kind of snug, grab your torque wrench and we're going to torque that to 46 foot-pounds. Okay, so about right there. And then what you want to do is you want to search, make sure you can get this cotter pin through these holes here. So you can see that goes straight through there. And if you had to, if the hole was right up against one of these portions of the castle nut, you can tighten that just a little more, just so you can get this pin through here. You never want to loosen it. You always want to just tighten that a little more in order to get this cotter pin through here. So then you just stick your cotter pin through there, and I just like to bend down one side. So bend that down so it sits there just like that. And then if you can, go ahead and grab your grease gun, and we'll go ahead and shoot some grease into the Pitman arm. We'll go ahead and give this a few pumps, just like that. So back underneath the hood here, let's go ahead and get our steering shaft onto the new gearbox here. So again, we'll just kind of, hopefully you guys can see this, we're going to slide that down onto there. You have to wiggle it a little bit. So you can see it kind of trying to get on there. Let me grab my pry bar. And it might be kind of a challenge to get on just because this isn't opened up, and whoever tightened this last tightened it pretty tight, so it squeezes that together, so it's kind of hard to slide onto the gearbox there. If you just kind of wiggle it on there, Try to find a spot I can pry on. See if I can maybe tap it on here. There we go. So just kind of tap that on. Grab your bolt. Get that started down in there. Grab your 11mm along with your long extension here. Let's go ahead and tighten that up. Then you can grab your torque wrench. We'll torque that to 37 foot-pounds. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and put our new O-ring on our line here. So go ahead and grab this, and you can pull off that O-ring. Pop that off, and then grab your new one. Then again, I just put a little bit of power steering fluid on that. So get that slid on the line here. Now we can go ahead and drop this down into the gearbox here. You just want to be careful. You don't want to cross thread this. So get that line started down in there. You want to try and do this by hand. Trying to get you guys the best angle here. Just really hard to get in here. Okay, so there we go. So you don't want to cross thread that, so just make sure you be careful as you're threading this in by hand. And then you can grab your 18mm. Let's go ahead and start tightening down on this. So get that nice and snug. Next, we can go ahead and get our return line put back on here. So go ahead and get on your hose clamp. Squeeze that, and then we'll slide that on. Get that into place. And I try to put this back the way it was, the hose clamp, so it doesn't leak on us. It's about there like that. So now we're ready to go ahead and start filling it with some new power steering fluid. So go ahead and remove your cap here. And then I'll just be using some of this Prestone power steering fluid. I had this left over from a previous job I did. What we're gonna do is just go ahead and start pouring some of this in here. See if I can get my light for a little more light in here. Because what we want to do is fill this up, because it's pretty much dry right now because all that fluid ran out when we pulled the lines. So let's just go ahead and start adding a little here, and then we'll just keep checking it. So get you a funnel or something so you don't make a mess. Go ahead and pour some in here. Kind of see where we're at right there. So you can pull your funnel out and stick it back in your jug here so it doesn't leak all over the place. Take a look down in there. You can see there is fluid now. Take your cap with your dipstick. We'll pull this off. We'll kind of see where we're at. So if you notice on here, you can see we're at the full cold line right now. You can see the full hot lines right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little more, because once we start turning this from side to side, it's gonna use some of this fluid. So we can probably go almost to the full hot line, or about halfway between that and this add one. So let's go ahead and add a little more. So I'm thinking about right there. Let that drain down in there. And grab a rag here, just wipe this off. Double check our line. So you can see we're almost to the hot line there. So I'm gonna call that good for now. And then we can adjust accordingly after we move this wheel from side to side here. So go ahead and put that back on. Next, we can go ahead and hook up the negative battery cable here. That way we get power to our seat. We can move that back when we undo the seat belt. So go ahead and hook that back up with your 8mm. So then you can come back into the cab here. We'll undo the seat belt. We can bring our seat all the way back here. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to turn this from side to side, since our wheels are still off the ground here. Get that all the way back. We'll come in here. I'll just go ahead and turn the key here without starting it. And then, like I said, we're going to go all the way to one side. Turn this music down here. Turn that off. Sorry, I had to reset up my camera so I can use both hands here. But you're going to turn this all the way until it stops at one end there. Keep turning this all the way to the other end. Back to the other side. Like I said, you're going to do this about 15 to 20 times. But I'm going to go about maybe 5 times, and then we're going to check our level real quick here. So that's 2. And 5. And then we'll just kind of return this back to the center here. So let's go check our level now. So go ahead and check your level here. Let's see where we're sitting at now. Give it a wipe. Stick it back down in there. So you can see, drop just a little bit, but not by very much here. So let's go ahead and we'll continue on. You just don't want this to run dry. So I'll go ahead and do this another 15 times real quick. So I'll go ahead and do this another 15 times or so. So let's go ahead and check our level one more time here. And as you can see, really didn't move too much, about the same there. So that's okay. We are over the cold line, but I think once we start it, it might go down a little more as well. So let's go ahead and start it now. So I'll go ahead and start it. And then we'll just go all the way to the right here, all the way to the left. And then we'll go back to the middle here. We'll shut it off. Let's check our level. Let's go ahead and check our level now that we started it. And you can see that it used a lot of that fluid, so that's why I only did it from side to side real quick and then shut it off. So it looks like we need to add some more here. So go ahead and grab that and try to see how much we need to add here. Just going to start out lightly here because you don't want to overfill it either. Just kind of see where that sits. So you can see that did bring it up, but now we're at the add mark right there. So let's go ahead and add a little more. We'll bring it up to the full cold mark here. Okay, so as you can see now, we are at the full cold mark there. So we should be good. Let's go ahead and we'll start it again and we'll go side to side. And then we'll check our level again here. And you can see that dropped even more. So we're gonna have to keep adding fluid here because it is getting circled through all the lines there. So it looks like I used that whole gallon. Well, not the whole gallon. I think I had maybe 1/4 of a gallon in there. Let's see where we're sitting now. Okay, so you can see we are above the cold line there. That's okay. Let's go ahead and start it again. We'll go side to side and we'll see if we need to add any more. So now we'll check our level one more time here, see if we need to add any more. And as you can see, those last few turns, looks like it actually brought it right where we need to be. So right at the top of the full cold mark there. Just double check and make sure, but I think we're good. So yeah, right there at the full cold mark. So I'm gonna call that good. And then also just double check when it's running and all that. That's why I gave you that shot below there. So you can just make sure to check all your fittings and your lines here and make sure those aren't leaking. So that all looks good. Let's go back down below. So just double check under here. That stuff's just from the original one leaking there. But if you take a look here, you can see that's where the old one was leaking, right where the Pitman arm goes onto the gearbox. You can see that's nice and dry there. So I'm gonna call that good. I do need to pressure wash this and everything though. So then you can go ahead and get your skid plate back into place here. Like I said, I'm doing other work to this truck too, so I'll pressure wash this all at the end there. All right, so that's going to be it for the video. What you want to do next is go ahead and jack it up, get your jack stands out of there, and then lower it to the ground. But like I said earlier, I got a bunch of work I'm doing to this truck, so I'm just going to leave this jacked up because I'm going to be putting a bunch of these parts on next. I'm going to be pretty much rebuilding the whole front end on this truck and replacing the CV axles, that kind of stuff. But once you get it lowered and all that, go ahead and take it for a drive and just go ahead and check that power steering level when it's fully hot as well, and then add any if you need to. So hopefully this video helps you out. If it does, hit that like and subscribe button. Again, this was a 2005 Chevy Silverado. Went ahead and replaced the steering gearbox and then also the Pitman arm. Thanks for watching.